In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. I'm very excited today to dig into the commonalities between SEO and GEO, or Generative Engine Optimization, and some of the tactics and tools that we can use to make sure that the GPTs are accessing our websites correctly to get information when people are doing research in the target markets that we're active in. And today I have the honor of talking to Michael Buckbee, who has worked at the intersection of marketing and technology for nearly 2 decades. His past clients have included the U.S. Navy, Fortune 100 companies, startups, presidential candidates, foreign agencies, rock bands, and even foreign governments. Today, he's the co-founder of Knowatoa, a service tracking brand, ranks, and sentiment within AI search services like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google Gemini. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a delight. This is the stuff I love to talk about, kind of won't shut up talking about. So it's nice to have an outlet for it. So.
All right. Well, I sure appreciate you taking the time to jump on the show. And I'm really excited to learn from you. Let's see. How did you get started in search engine optimization over 2 decades ago?
I've bounced back and forth between being a software developer and a marketing person. And just as a general statement, I think being a software developer that knows marketing or a marketing person that, just mixing those two together is a really potent combination where it's just a lot of leverage to get things done. And it's, it just opens up so many new and interesting opportunities and ways to stand out and ways to be productive. And I've been doing that a long time. And, to see, we'll talk about AI for search, but even just AI on the generative side and AI as a tool to explain code, to vibe code, or whatever you want to call it for you as an assist is something I think marketers across the board, I see them adopting it, and I think it's just going to accelerate.
Yeah. And I think as a functional area in business, marketing, for whatever reason, is the first to grab onto these trends and really ride things hard like this. And I saw some stats that it's well over 85% of marketers are using generative AI in campaigns at some point. Over the course of a month, which is a way higher adoption than a lot of other functional areas.
Yeah.
The change from SEO to GEO, what are you seeing over the last 2 years, and how successful companies have started to make that transition?
Yeah, so I'm not a real fan of the GEO moniker. And this is one of those things, like, everyone loves to fight about semantics. But I think there's a larger point, which is that imagine ChatGPT didn't exist, Claude, that none of them existed, and we looked only at what Google is doing right now. Okay. We would still need to start thinking of new strategies, handling this in a different way. And, in clear terms, Google is still the leader in search AI. And yeah. I think that really speaks to, the urgency of some of this, either from the standpoint of, you may have other people on your board, asking about this or asking about the changes because they're just everywhere. And, having a good response to that and planning ahead for it is, I think, of paramount importance right now.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting that I think for the first time, Google was less than 90% of search volume. So
Mhm.
that, however, there's still almost 90% of search volume, to your point, that there's still the 800-pound gorilla in that respect.
Yeah. I mean, those are numbers that I think obscure a lot of things. A couple things just throwing it out there. One, no one's doing navigational search in ChatGPT. And if you really look at like, oh, well, like what are the top 10 searches people put into Google? It's YouTube, Wikipedia. It's all these, like, are those really searches, or is that like a shortcut for them to navigate? And that's a huge chunk of that number. I think part of the reason why Google has made such drastic changes so quickly is that there have been drastic changes happening in the world of software development, and they are very much a tech software development company.
Yeah.
If you're not a developer, it is insane the degree to which AI tooling has taken over,
Yeah.
and it has had a real impact on search volumes. And you can quibble about the veracity of some of it or the helpfulness, but the search experience of being able to take a chunk of code, hey, let's loop around, a list of stuff in JavaScript. And, everybody has this skill where they abstract out like, okay, so here's what I'm going to ask Google. I'm going to take a step back, ask it in this particular way to try to get the thing I want. Then I'm going to find a result. Then I'm going to like patch it back into my brain. And instead, you just take those 5 lines of code, paste it into ChatGPT, and it will just fix it for you. It won't even ask a question. It will just fix it for you. And that has led to a real drop in search volumes. I refer to that as search evaporation, where these are searches that are not happening now because of the rise of AI tools. The other thing to be concerned about is traffic evaporation, where people are still searching for things, but because Google has AI overviews, they've changed how they present information. The traffics and the links that used to come to our individual websites, now they aren't. They're staying on Google. And that has a whole other range of impacts.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we've seen from Google consistently, right? Is that as there are activities that a lot of us are doing, then they just build it into the search engine itself. And I call it siphoning because it was going to my site. Now they're siphoning it to stay on Google. But that's definitely to your point. Well, I guess, what is it that we should be looking at in terms of feeding these engines with the content they want? How do we do that today versus what we were doing 5 years ago?
So I take the standpoint that we're trying to enable users, prospects, customers to find the information they want about our brands, and then take their actions on it. That the term is search intent, sort of task intent. People are trying to accomplish things. The better we can help them, the better off we'll be. And for a long time, the SEO game was really around top of funnel keywords, very informational keywords that had a lot of traffic and would drive a lot of people to your site, whether or not they were really interested in buying. And what we're seeing is that because Google has AI overviews, because people are asking ChatGPT, what you need to do is essentially train those services to be a better customer service representative for you. Something that was said to me by an agency owner who I was talking to was, ChatGPT is now our least well-trained and most popular customer service representative. And it makes sense. People, a crazy stat that's sort of outside of the marketing world I saw was that the number one use of ChatGPT and these systems is now not for exactly therapy, but some form of support, or like, hey, I'm having this weird conversation with this person at work. How can I write this email in a way that's professional but gets my point across? Things like that. And if people are willing to trust these systems with those kind of questions, of course they'll also be like, which email template should I go buy? Whatever it is. So it's a new world. So that's one area where we really suggest brands, if you're a CMO, if you're marketing director, that you start thinking about is how do we train this? And a lot of that stuff used to be, I come from a B2B SaaS background. a lot of this stuff used to be in like a battle card that we would
Right.
keep like proprietary. And, now you will be excluded from contention, from sales, if you don't have those things. Something really big in SaaS is, of course, all the compliance. So
Sure.
if someone searches, hey, your name, HIPAA, that is a money search. They are trying to find a solution to the problems they have. It has to be HIPAA compliant because they're medical. And if ChatGPT says the wrong information, you're out. If ChatGPT says, oh, you don't actually do business in California, when you do, you're out.
Yep.
And a lot of that is responsibilities that have not fallen to the search team, but I think it's the logical place for that. So that's the first area. I don't know. Does that make sense to you, man?
Yeah, I guess the question is, how do we start building content on the site to be crawled correctly, so that if I am doing business in California, that ChatGPT knows that.
Yeah. So we really recommend two things in terms of influence. And this, I want to stress, this is something that's very doable. And more than that, I think it's something that can't miss, and that it's directionally positive no matter what. Like, this is solid marketing work, however you want to cut it, even if you don't believe in AI.
Right.
Which is, one, you should clearly state this knowledge, and you should actually break it out. So you should talk to your customer support team. Here's the common questions. Make sure that's on the site. Talk to your sales team. What are the common objections we get? What are the common things that hold this up?
Right.
Build out essentially FAQs. At this point, it kind of doesn't matter the exact format, each one. Just get the words on your site. And two, you can start, pushing that out. So it's both have the content exist and then distribution. So here's this quick thought experiment. OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, has a literal $1 billion relationship with Microsoft. Part of that relationship is access to LinkedIn and access to GitHub. Now, we're all marketers, and we think of social as like a distinct thing from search in a lot of cases. But the whole reason for that relationship, they are not spending billions of dollars for nothing, and part of that is access to LinkedIn. And what an easily, it's hard to get an article in the New York Times. It is very easy to get an article published on your corporate LinkedIn page.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, take those things and say, like, hey, it's 2025. We're happy with our HIPAA solutions. We've just received accreditation again. We helped, 40,000 companies last year. What an awesome, positive social post to put out on LinkedIn. Entirely appropriate, and it just happens. It also helps you on the back end with, ranking in ChatGPT and other systems.
So yeah, I'm hearing like fundamental content marketing as a way of seeding your content into your website, and then also one of the biggest social media platforms on the planet, right? LinkedIn.
Yeah, any type of user-generated platform is just like ripe for all those things. The other area where we look at this, so we talk about brand knowledge. The other one is brand sentiment, where the example I bring up a lot is Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo received the largest fine ever from the Federal Trade Commission, hundreds of millions of dollars.
For creating accounts, right? Creating accounts for customers.
Bad stuff. So, and it's interesting. It's almost like if you have an argument with your partner and they bring up something from like 3 years ago, like, like you didn't take out the trash, but like, well, you left bananas in the car 3 years ago and it still smells. ChatGPT is almost like that, in that if you ask anything about Wells Fargo, it brings it up and says like, hey, before you do business with Wells Fargo, you should probably look at their ethics, check and see what's happened. And that's not what you want. That's not a strong recommendation. And that's very different than traditional search. But if you look in traditional search, you search in Google for Wells Fargo, you'll get, where's the nearest Wells Fargo ATM? Where's their location? How do I log in? So both of these are different aspects of search, of the search function, of search marketers, that we want to just be paying more attention to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. If I'm going to go really duct tape, would you say, could I just go and ask ChatGPT what I should do in order to make my web properties more accessible and what kind of information it would need?
Somewhat. And here's the reason I say that. There are things, self-knowledge is the hardest knowledge, I think, to earn for humans and for AIs.
Okay.
And, these are still not truly intelligent systems, and they really just reflect back what they've been given. And there is no ends to the conflicting and bad advice that has happened for just traditional SEO
For sure.
over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Tactics that, worked and people have just cargo culted to today. It's the exact same thing for AI. Also, I think there's real limits to what can do. Here's a very clear example. Reuters, the news organization.
Yep.
If you look at the robots.txt file, which is the set of commands on the website that say how they are politely requesting bots interact with their site, it is, I think, 500, 600 lines long with very specific exclusions for ChatGPT, for Claudebot, for all these different things, because they think of their news and they don't want it sucked into that system. That's a very different standpoint than, hey, I run a software company, I'm trying to get the word out, And so I'm not saying, hey, just throw everything you have, all your intellectual property into these, but, make an informed decision about what should and shouldn't be in there. And it very closely mirrors all the things that you would want Google to index.
Sure.
And I bring this up because this is an inarguable point. If ChatGPT's bot can't index your site, it's not going to be able to reflect that back in its data. Very straightforward.
Yep.
There are many, many sites that either are blocking access via robots.txt or from a service like Cloudflare, or they're on a cloud host and it happens to be using some system. And that's putting a lot of weights on yourself before you start the marathon, of doing this. And if you ask ChatGPT, it won't know that. It can't check that for you. So there's a lot of those kind of things that you need to bring to it that you can't just ask. So
I like that. So in the software that you've developed, are there recommendations that happen from when you crawl my site and tell me what terms are coming up in certain services?
Yeah. So, like I said, we take the standpoint of Google still exists. Radical. Google still exists.
It does.
The people still exist, and they're still just trying to get things done. And at a certain level, they kind of don't care whether they get results from Google or something else. They're just typing some words in a box and they want an answer. And so what we do is with Knowatoa, our software, you enter your website and it looks up all the traditional search keywords for you.
Yep.
And then we have a system where we do what we call a deep classification of those. And so we go through all of the search terms and we look and we go, well, this looks like a navigational term. No one's going to ask that in ChatGPT. You kind of can set that aside. You've already won. If people are looking up how to get to your login page, you've already won.
For sure.
Yeah. And, then we're looking at, the AI questions you have here. And so that's part of it. And if you scroll, very nicely shown, if you scroll to the right some here, Emanuel.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah,
you'll actually see we have some of these classifications for intent, for like, it's a little more to the right.
It's as much as I got. I don't know.
I think our faces are actually obscuring the bar.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you drag the bar, maybe.
Let's see. I'll see if I can put it in a different window here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see the pink and yellow on the side? Yeah. There's another column hiding there too. Yeah. So we have, intent, stage, brand, all these classifications of all your keywords that really help you make better determinations about how to change your content strategy, where to put the right emphasis. And from that, we're also able to derive the chat search volume and to be able to say, oh, this is something where there's likely a lot of interest and that you should make sure that you're tracking this. So.
Nice. And so which ones should I be paying attention to out of this list?
This is one of those hard things where I think it depends so much on the individual brand. So anything that is lower in the funnel, I would say is a higher priority. And that is one of the things that we pull out. So you can sort by that in the columns.
Yeah.
And, The reason I say that is that the top of funnel, that gets an AI overview. Maybe you're one of the people that's listed as a citation. Those still don't get a lot of click through. But for the middle and lower funnel, and the technical search dweeb term, I say that on myself, for this is convergent versus divergent questions.
Right.
That if you're asking a convergent question, it comes down to an answer and that's it. Like, hey, how tall is a giraffe? An average giraffe. It'll give you an answer. There's no follow-up. But if I ask like, hey, what's the best email software? Well, there's 10 different ones it could be. There's lots of follow-on. There's lots of other things to do. Why don't you can you go up to the top left and go back to like the homepage for Emanuel Rose?
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
click on that there, the sites. Click on that, and then click on the search funnel analysis.
Search.
Yeah, down. There you go. It's that pie chart.
Oh, yeah.
There
Gotcha.
you go. Yeah. So this is a different view of that same information. So this is how many questions are each in there. So what the search intent is, what the different stage of the questions is, where it's at in the buyer's funnel. And that's just interesting information to know across the board for making a good content strategy.
For sure. All right. I love it. And so then I would be able to go in here and learn about how I needed to update my site in order to give it a full experience for the whole funnel.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is really to start with the existing search intents, and we talked about brand knowledge, brand sentiment, and the third is brand competition. And if you go back to the overview, and then you scroll down to the AI search rankings, it's on the right. Yeah, and then click on ChatGPT. You're on the free plan, so it's only the top couple questions, and it looks like you don't have much ranks here. But you can click on any of these, and you can see what the current output is. And so go ahead and so we're looking at ChatGPT right now, and so what we have listed for ChatGPT is some of the older models as well as the very latest model. And we put that in there so that you can see historical performance.
Yeah.
And if you had more of a SaaS site, you probably would have more of these filled in.
Right. Yeah.
You can see, so you're looking at, this is 3.5 turbo, which is like a real old model at this point. We aren't expecting people to use this, but it's interesting to see. So the question is, what are some good marketing books? And it has this list of books. Now, if you go back and now let's look at 4.0 latest. Yeah. So that same question, but you click on, the gray box there. So now same question, but it's a very different answer. And we see this a lot where for like SaaS, a year ago, what was coming back from the AIs was something like a list. Here's a list of companies. What is coming back now is, hey, we think that this is best for this type of company, for small business, for e-commerce, for something like that. Here's the key features of it, and we'll list out features. Now, that may or may not be accurate. That may also, definitely is. It's historical. It's not looking to the future. So if your strategy has changed and you're trying to move up market, that's not great. So being able to look at that, and then from your content, hey, I want to rank better for this. You start to reflect that back and to say, hey, we are the best business book for these reasons. We covered this in this particular way. And, if you're able to do that, I don't know if it's easy to win at this point, but it certainly gets you in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, is interesting. I'll dig into this and spend a little more time updating my content plan. So it's an interesting tool, and I think you guys have got a long runway with it over the next, hopefully at least the next 5 years.
Yeah, let's hope. So, so much of this is dependent upon like what happens with Google, what happens with all these different changes. Have you looked at anything like the deep research tools that Google has or anything like
Absolutely. that? Absolutely. I love that. The Notebook LM. That is, it's one of my favorite tools right now.
Yeah, and this is why I'm asking this, is that I think this is a real inflection point for search. And, at this point, we are still in the very early stages of humans Googling directly to sites. Like we search through sites, and even to the extent to which most of the answers that are coming back from the models are still really knowledge-based answers, where they're looking through their data and then they're reflecting that back. We're moving rapidly towards a reasoning-based model. And these are available. They're just used a lot less because they're expensive and slow comparatively.
Yep.
But with those, they're able to make, more logical leaps, to figure things out. And that can still be good or bad, based on your brand. So.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot that develops over the next 6 months, and I'll be interested to see how you guys respond to it. And I'd love to have you back on the show and get your take on how it's progressed, and if there's some new opportunities for seeding the GPTs. So
absolutely,
I sure appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing your expertise with me today.
Oh, this was great. Thanks so much for having me on, Emanuel.
Yeah, you bet. Good luck, and I have no doubt you're going to be very successful.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Michael. Well, so we could take away a couple of things. One is don't lose sight of Google. And two is reach out to some of your client-facing teams and get some more data about what their frequent conversations are with prospects and clients, and get that content onto the website in a way that is crawlable by the GPTs. Hope this has been valuable for you today. And I also hope that you get out and find a tool like Knowatoa or something else that takes some time and gives you some time back, that you're implementing AI into your workflows, and then using the time that it saves to spend time with your family, your friends, and get outside in the great outdoors. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.